I'm obsessed with buildings, and I'm not expecting you to be. You might be thinking, oh no, here comes another architecture program. But just an example, in this small ordinary street in North London, within 20 yards, I can show you 3 fascinating things that you'll remember forever. How many times do you walk past a house like this without giving it a second glance? Well, this apparently ordinary looking house actually has its origins in 9th century Byzantium or Istanbul, particularly those rounded arches with the multicoloured bricks became very popular as a style over here in the late 19th century. So if you see those rounded arches with multicoloured bricks, it's late 19th century Britain derived from 9th century Istanbul. And here we are outside a classic London pub on the corner of a terrace. And it's no surprise that it's on the corner of a terrace, because when a builder was building a terrace, he'd often build the pub first. Firstly, so his builders would have somewhere to eat and drink while they were building, but also so that when he'd got halfway through the project, he could sell off the pub and finish off the terrace with the proceeds. Now, it's no surprise this is a post-1830 pub, because in that period there was a massive boom in drinking beer, partly because of people's drinking habits, but also because in 1830, the Duke of Wellington, who was Prime Minister, was so concerned about people drinking too much gin, is he removed all tax on beer and slapped huge tax on gin. So not surprisingly, people started drinking beer heavily, and these pubs were purpose-built for drinking beer in. The other thing is, 1830s, no telly, no central heating. Where would you go for a few warm laughs but the pub at the end of the street? Now, you might think health and safety is a very boring, very modern obsession, but actually it's been around for 300 years. And you can tell with this windowsill. Now, windowsills, you might think kind of boring subject, and I don't blame you. Before the Great Fire of London in 1666, there were no windowsills. Windows were flush with the brickwork next door. And when a flame came licking up the front of the house, it caught the wooden sash on the edge of the window and was sucked inside the house, meaning the whole of the city of London was destroyed. So after the fire, in 1709, an act was passed saying that windowsills had to be set back 6 inches or more, so that if the flame came licking up the front of the house, it wouldn't catch the wooden sash and wouldn't go inside the house. So I can say with some confidence that this house, with its deep windowsills, is built after 1709. Now, I'm not against modern architecture. It can produce some absolutely fantastic buildings. But here's an example where it's produced a cheap, poor building. I better be quiet because there are people in. But this modern block next door to me is a much, much cheaper, poorer relation of the Victorian terrace next door. Why? Well, you can see, just like the Victorian terrace, it's got a plastered ground floor. The windows on the first floor are taller than the ones on the second floor. But apart from that, at every single level, they've taken the beautiful Victorian features and cheapened and made them more simple than the original. It illustrates brilliantly how incredibly elegant those Victorian terraces were at an original very low price. And you can see here on either side of the window, those 2 little curved chunks of wood are called window horns. And they were introduced in the late 19th century when they realized that they could get glass to be very, very thin and very, very strong, but still the wooden frame couldn't carry the window without the extra support that came from those window horns. So whenever you see those little twirly-whirly chunks of wood, you're talking late 19th century Victorian windows. First of all, the pillar box, designed in 1836 by Anthony Trollope, the famous novelist, who also had a day job working for the post office. The pillar box accommodated the other great invention by Rowland Hill, which was the penny post, the idea that you could pay 1 penny for a stamp, put your letter in one of these, and it would get to anywhere else in Britain for a single penny. The great old phone box, officially called the K6, designed in 1936 by a very distinguished architect, Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, who also built Liverpool Cathedral and Bankside Power Station, which then became Tate Modern. But he freely admitted that he had borrowed the design for the phone box from another great British architect, John Soane, who used this ceiling twice in two of his most famous buildings. First of all, Sir John Soane's Museum down the road in 1811, and then for his own tombstone down in King's Cross, just that way. They both had this so-called trampoline ceiling, which Giles Gilbert Scott copied for this great old stalwart of the British High Street. And you can tell just by looking at the colours of these bricks where they come from and what they're made out of. And so the yellower the brick, it's more likely to come from Kent brick fields, where the earth they take from the ground produces a yellow brick. It might get stained with soot from when London was completely covered with smoke until the Clean Air Acts, the 1950s. More recent bricks are red, like these ones, which have obviously just been done up just here. And the redder the brick, the more iron there is in the soil that produced the brick in the first place. So these perfectly ordinary looking terraced houses are in fact derived from palaces built by Andrea Palladio, who was around in 16th century Italy near Venice. He's the one who gives us the term Palladian architecture. The plasterwork on the ground floor, the horizontal grooves on the ground floor, the height of the windows on the first floor, which are taller than the ground, and the second floor, and those details either side of each window on the first floor and on top all come from the greatest architect that's ever lived, and that's all in a terrace street in Primrose Hill.